With Paul Harris filling in for McGraw all week long, and Kelly Jackson is here with me, and we're joined now by Nick Pistor, writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, who has been writing recently a lot about Paul McKee. He's the developer whose Northside regeneration project has caused some controversy, and recently created a little bit more, especially at a meeting last week of the Aldermanic Council, which is looking at perhaps pouring some money into this project through bonds. Nick, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here.
So I know you wrote about this the other day, about what happened at the meeting last Wednesday. And before we get to the newest developments on that, recap, if you would, where things stand and what it is that this Paul McKee is trying to do.
We're not actually sure he's trying to do anything, but what the situation is that St. Louis is currently considering passing about $195 million worth of bonds for infrastructure improvements throughout the city. It will be on the ballot in November, most likely if it's approved by the Board of Aldermen. A controversy developed last week at the Board of Aldermen as the Ways and Means Committee were considering ballot language for this bill. Some of the folks there thought that upwards of $29 million would go to help indirectly fund Paul McKee's Northside regeneration project, which, as we know, of course, has received a lot of backing through TIF funding. So that's kind of where it stands right now. The city is saying that McKee would only, tacitly benefit through this because the bonds would go to pay for infrastructure improvements, particularly street improvements in that large area where McKee's project is. It would essentially offset a lot of McKee's requirements to provide various infrastructure improvements on his own through the TIF funding that he's already receiving. Louis Reed, the president of the Board of Aldermen, has said that he's very concerned that this is some sort of backdoor effort to do this, whereas McKee, who's not talking, hasn't said much of anything. That project has not broken ground yet. But one thing that people like to point out is that any other developer in the city would also benefit as well from these bonds if there are infrastructure improvements throughout the city, and that goes from sewer streets down to new fire trucks, things like that.
Yeah, these sort of things are not all that unusual. If my memory serves me correctly, the Cardinals got these sort of deals for both the new Busch Stadium and for Ballpark Village, essentially saying, look, we're going to do something, put a lot of our money into this, but we're going to need the municipality to kick in some money to fix, as you say, the nearby roads, the traffic lights, the sewage, etc. Isn't that the same kind of deal that McKee would be getting under this plan?
Somewhat differently. McKee's already received the TIF funding that he's fought so hard to get, and I think what some of the aldermen are concerned about is that he would be getting more additional resources. And that would be through these bonds. And in additional, there's the transportation tax, the sales tax that's being considered right now, that would, benefit him in the form they'd be putting in an interchange in an area that would help flow traffic up into his ward. But there is a flip side of where the city's saying is that they badly want to redevelop that section of North Side, an area that has seen no growth and no developers willing to take any chance on that. And they're really trying to bring that area into something that is at least develop-worthy and sustainable to help even out the city. And so they are wanting to pump a lot of money into it, but they're trying to say it's not favoring just one particular developer. He just happens to be the guy who's interested in trying to work up there.
So, Nick, what is the status, though, of the Northside development? I know Mr. McKee has really been working on this for, over a decade now?
Yeah.
So,
and it seems like the status is always basically in flux. There has been no ground broken on the project yet. So it causes a lot of people to speculate. He had said he would be breaking ground last month. That did not happen. And then a couple of months ago, you guys might recall there was a minor scuffle over him repaying some of the city's legal fees that he owed them. And he did not do that by a deadline, and then he got an extension, and he finally has paid those legal fees. So there was some question about his financing in what he's doing. I think most people are surmising he's still working to get all of the funding together, and that's why he is wanting other things and looking for other ways to get banks interested in his project.
Is this a situation where he's saying, look, I want to do this, but I'm not going to do it unless you're going to be part of it? We're all going to have to take a piece of this and move forward together.
No, not necessarily. He is not, with these bonds, he's not out front of it. He's not, particularly saying, this is a McKee bond, because it certainly isn't. This is a $195 million bond, but, millions of dollars could help street and road improvements in the area where his project is. It's a large area in North St. Louis.
But it's not dedicated to just that area. This is a city-wide infrastructure improvement we're talking about.
Yeah, this is something that would benefit the city across the board. It would go to building improvements, things like that, in every corner of the city is the whole point of it. And it's not just for one particular project or one particular thing. But still, it's what some of the aldermen are at least talking about and concerned about as they go forward. And that could still remain an issue this week as the Board of Aldermen is working to pass the ballot language.
Whenever a city passes a bond issue like this, essentially you're borrowing money from the people who buy those bonds. And
yes.
How is the city going to pay them back? Are they going? Is there going to be a new tax?
Yes, there is. It'll be a property tax on property owners in the city. It would amount to upwards of, I believe, $30-something, $35 or so per $100,000 in assessed valuation. That'll be the increase per year that someone will see. And there'll also be an increase that property tax also applies to vehicles like your car or truck or boat or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, people will. It's funded that way.
Anytime you talk about a tax increase of any kind, people always stiffen their back and go, "Oh no." But if you were to tell people, "Look, we're going to charge you got a $200,000 house. It's going to cost you $70 a year to make sure that the cops get decent pay, that the fire trucks are new and still work, that the roads aren't falling apart." All over the entire city, not just in one neighborhood, but all over the place. I think if you went around town and said, would you all kick in another $70 or $75 for that? I think most people would do that if you didn't use the phrase tax increase. It's amazing. It's amazing the way people react to that. And when you talk about a bond, that's the part of it that doesn't get discussed because they never want to say those words.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It all comes down to the language that people use, and bond issue sounds a lot better than tax increase. And I do think it's something that people support when they don't think about how it affects their bottom line, and that's why these things are hard to pass. And voters are going to be statewide are considering a transportation sales tax in August, and they're going to come back and they're going to have to figure out this issue of a property tax increase in November. So it's a lot of tax increases that people are trying to consider, and I doubt voters will pass both of them.
Yeah. All right, Nick, thanks very much for your information. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
As Nick Pistor from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and STLTODAY.com here on McGraw in the Morning with Paul Harris and Kelly Jackson on the Big 5.